Well, it's that time again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the interview with Craig Veltri.
Thank you, Megan Pennington, and welcome to the interview.
Hi.
Surely, as our guest has been around the world, the revolving door policy is enacted once more. Through his production company, Rattle Clack Entertainment, Jazz's Rock and Road Show has allowed his viewers to join him on his adventures across America and three of the world's seven continents, including Antarctica. The Antarctic episodes earned our guest a 2025 Gold Tally Award. Congratulations. Jazz's Rock and Road Show airs daily on music from the412.com and on the Roku app. My episode and the entire series are also available on demand. When he isn't adding up those frequent flyer miles, he is embedded well in the Pittsburgh music scene with his band Half Wheel. Their most recent single, 2024's Rain, is available on all streaming along with their extensive back catalog. Calling in from Rattleclack HQ in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and me calling and recording him in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here he is, Jazz Byers. Jazz, welcome to the interview.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, you seem to be happy to be just about anywhere on God's green earth. How did I know you had done some documentary work prior to doing Jazz's Rock and Road Show? How
Sure.
did the idea of a series and the opportunity for a series come into play?
Wow. Okay. So I live in Pittsburgh whenever I'm not traveling, and I'm friends with a gentleman that started a radio station and TV station for Pittsburgh musicians surrounding areas, trying to like build up the scene, having one place in Pittsburgh where you could go for Pittsburgh music and videos and all things Pittsburgh artists, basically.
Right.
And they asked me to do this show, and I'm like, I'm too busy. This is like 4 years ago. I'm like, I'm too busy. I travel too much. And they're like, come on, man, we really want you to do this show. And it took them about a year of asking me before finally I was like, all right, I broke down. I'm like, can I do anything I want? And they're like, anything you want. I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a show from a different location every single episode, or most every single episode will be a different location. And then I'll feature a Pittsburgh band or several of them. And they're like, that sounds great. And that's how it came about. Prior to that, I'd done documentaries of some of my travels, bike riding across the United States in 2016, which is actually how the band Half Wheel came to
The Southern Tier you mentioned, yeah.
the Southern Tier. Yes, exactly. So you've done your research.
I try.
You're a much better interviewer than I am. Um,
Nonsense, you're great at it. But you were saying.
um, but that, so I had the video background and stuff, and I own a production company, so I had all the gear. So finally, they broke me down, and after 4 years, or after a year of asking me, I finally started to do the show. And the whole idea was when it originally started, the first, oh, I don't know, 6, 7 episodes, all the artists that I had on the show, I didn't tell them about that beforehand. I would just call them up wherever I was, and I'd be like, hey, I'm in blah, blah, blah. Do you want to be on my TV show? And they'd be like, what? And luckily, like the first six of them were like, yeah, okay, cool. But then I got thinking, I'm like, this is probably not gonna be sustainable at one point in time. So now I call the bands ahead of time and like, hey, why don't you be on my show? But originally the show was the first segment was me contacting a band, and then I'd play some of their videos, and I'd try to be in some weird location, and then the second segment would be me heading back to the hotel, and I'd do a Zoom interview with the artist, and then the third segment was me heading back to Pittsburgh and meeting up with artists at my place. But
Now,
now,
this being a you being based in Pittsburgh and this being on a Pittsburgh centric network, is that a constraint to you? Is that to say you're not going to interview artists from outside the city?
no, because I'll do that as well. I mean, when I do that, I try to have some Pittsburgh guest on in some fashion, but it's kind of morphed into anyone I want to have on the show. So if you know anyone out there in any part of the world, I'm friends with everybody. So let's get them on the show.
Now, I
But
noticed that there isn't a decided dip when you enunciate your AH sounds, the dan, the ats kind of stuff. And I do know, I do recall that your education was in Wisconsin. So are you a native Yinzer? Are you from Pittsburgh?
I'm from Pittsburgh, yeah. So
Okay.
I was
Being around the world, that kind of kills accents, I've found.
yeah, well, yeah, I was born in Ross River, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh.
Right.
And a little bit of a speech impediment probably, and then the Yinzer accent, and then
Oh,
and then living in Minnesota for 11 years, my speech is everywhere. You know what I mean? And
oh,
it's not
I,
consistent.
broadcasting to you today from Charlotte, North Carolina. I lived in the South for 20 years. I went to school in Greensboro, North Carolina for college. And yeah, and being in broadcasting, I've gotten people asking me if I'm from Nebraska. So they say that travel is the greatest cure. Mark Twain said that travel is the greatest cure for prejudice. It is also the greatest cure for having a discernible accent. So, that being said, the opportunities have taken you. You've been to Taiwan, you've been to Shanghai, you've been to Japan, you have been to Austria, you have been to Antarctica. Um, I don't like giving this question, but I do think that people might be curious about it. Where was the one place that was the most stringent as far as maybe it was the vaccinations you had to go through, maybe it was just the visa process of going into the country with a camera. Uh, where um where uh, where was the biggest place and why was it China?
Okay, where was it and why was it China? Great. It was China. It was Shanghai.
Yeah.
Uh, well, because unbeknownst to Jazz, so I had to get. Let me think of the best way to start this story. I wasn't going to stay in Shanghai. I had to get on a plane to go. I was actually going to Wuhan and then moving on to Shaoxing, Taiwan. And I did not think about the fact that my luggage wouldn't go all the way through,
Hmm.
which meant I had to go out of security, pick up my luggage, recheck my bags, go back through security. Normally not a problem, right? Well, in China, I got off the plane and there was a lady holding a sign that said, Jazz Byers. They were looking for me. And accompanying her were probably four or five uh, security people of some sort. They were in the blue outfits. It's my understanding that if they have blue outfits, that's different than if they have the brown outfits, but I don't know how all that works. I'm just telling you what people have told me. So they're like, yeah, follow us. Did you check luggage? Yeah. Well, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I'm flying through. Like, I'm not doing it. And, well, you have to get your luggage. So I follow them and I get to where they kind of, for lack of a better word, point and drop me off. So now I get kind of passed off to another section of security and they take my passport and they tell me to sit down. And if you've ever been to China, like, it's easy if you're sitting in Pennsylvania and you're talking to somebody, like, oh, I'd never give somebody my passport. Yeah, guess what? When you're in China and you got like five big security guys saying, you sit there and we're taking your passport, that's what you do. So I'm kind of sitting
Sounds
there.
like you were being detained at the
I,
moment.
well, yeah, maybe. I mean, kind of, sort of detained in public, I guess. I mean, at this point, after about an hour and a half, I was starting to think of that movie Terminal with Tom Hanks, where he had to live in the airport. And I'm like, this is my life. This is what it's been reduced to, right? So
Mm.
they go away, and a couple times I get up and I kind of like, hey, what's good? And they're like, you sit over there. Okay. So I went and sat back over there. Finally, they came back through, and to make it a little shorter, they basically had to issue me a 240-hour temporary visa. So I get this little, 4x5 temporary visa. And now I still got to go through all the security and everything. Now, I had just been to Antarctica. And when I actually went to the South Pole and I was there twice.
Mhm.
And I stamped my passport, which invalidates it real technically, right? But I'm like, I'm not going to go to the South Pole and not stamp my passport if they got a stamper there. I got to, right? I stamped 2 pages and I'm standing at the, back in China, I'm standing there and the guy's looking through my passport and all of a sudden there's two more guys looking at my passport. And then they flip the page and they get to where I'd stamped the South Pole and they stop turning the page, and I'm like, oh great, here we go again. And they look up at me, and I look at them, and I just was like, I don't know. I was in Antarctica. They stamped my passport. I don't know what to tell you. It just started to play dumb. Anyway, so they walk off with my passport again. So now I'm stuck standing there. They eventually come back. They stamp it about 100 times, and I go through. So now I get through. Just all of this is just to get my bag, to literally put it on another conveyor belt and go back through security. So one thing that I learned in China.
Would you prefer the jumping through the hoop analogy or get the carrot analogy for this one?
Yeah, maybe it was a carrot on the other side of the hoop.
Ah, there you
I
go.
don't know. Oh, did I lose you?
No, you got me still.
You froze for a minute there. I thought maybe I lost you. Yeah, I'd say I was jumping through a hoop to get to the carrot that kept getting moved. The goal. How would they say the
They moved the
goal?
goalpost for you.
Yeah, but luckily I had like a 6 hour layover. So yeah, I mean it took me probably 3.5 hours, and I'd never been so happy as to like when I got back through security again. Which that's a whole nother story because a lot of times when you fly in Pittsburgh, you get there early. Well, you can. I'm sorry, when you fly in the States, you get there early, but you can typically go through security and check in and just sit on the other side. You know you're there. Well,
Have a beverage, wait for watch the game, whatever.
exactly. Well, here they didn't even open up the lines to check baggage or anything until like whatever time before your flight. So now I'm stuck. I'm like in limbo. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere because there's not enough time. I can't go through security. So I get in the line that I mean, I fly Delta pretty much all the time. So it was a Delta line. But the thing about over in China, I waited in this long line just to get to the front for them to tell me, well, you're in first class, you have to go to that line. Whereas, in the States, it'd just be like, yeah, okay, whatever, you're in first class, keep moving on.
Yep.
Like, oh, great. So, and I didn't know I was in first class. I'm sorry, I told you Delta. I was then flying China Eastern Air. I flew
Okay.
Delta to get there. China Eastern is a partner of Delta, so I was.
I see. I see.
So I go to the China Eastern line for first class, and it was such a world of difference. And I don't mean this like I'm not saying like, whoa, I flew first class, and I what I meant was
But you could.
like the difference between like you're just flying and oh my goodness, you're a first class ticket over there. Like they literally had this line painted on the floor. Just follow the yellow line, and it took you like right to the lounge. So like they're like, yeah, this is your lounge. Here's your pass to get in. And then like it was just the whole difference in the way you were treated. You know what I mean? And you see that in the States,
The
but it
scene in Casino Royale comes to mind.
yeah. So anyway, I kind of got on a tangent there, but yeah,
Not at all.
China.
Not at all.
I did enjoy China, but that was definitely a little bit of a challenge getting in and out. And then the best part is having survived that. Like once I was back in and I had my 240-hour temporary visa, life was sweet. But then I had the same thing like when I flew back through, except I had my visa and it made it a little bit easier.
We're here with Jazz Byers here on the Craig Veltri interview, a service of Scarfire Media LLC. For more on Scarfire Media, go to scarfireradio.net. Check out The Flame. Check out the Independent Musicians Catalog. Scarfire Media, the voice of the independent arts. All of that travel and all of those continents, I'm sure you sampled a lot of the cuisine. I do have a question about it as far as a generality. So let me phrase it like this.
Okay.
What is one cuisine from whatever countries you have visited that America still hasn't gotten right?
Huh. That's an interesting question.
Like you can't get it the way they make it over here, as hard as we try.
Okay. What comes to mind quickly, and maybe people will argue this, but Italian cuisine. A lot of the recipes when you're over in Italy are simplified. And I don't mean that like they're simple, like they're not delicious or they're not involved, but like they concentrate on the taste of the ingredients, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. I don't know if that came out right.
No, perfect sense. And I'm
Like,
willing to bet you most of that it was made within the village, probably.
yeah, like you go over there and you might have something very simple like noodles with garlic and parsley or whatever, butter. You come over here and you go someplace it's authentic Italian and there's a thousand different like, oh, there's olives and basil and this and that and the other thing. It's like it's not my experience. I'm not to say that they don't do that over there, but it's simplified. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you already kind of had the travel built into what you were doing already before the show came into play. Uh, was it the documentary films? Was it just general touring? How were you already up and out on the road and with the camera?
Sure. So with my production company, um, I do I basically do international events, conferences, shows, whatever. So anywhere that like if you want to produce a show, you call me and we work together and we make that show happen. So I do that all throughout the United States, and then I that's how I do the international stuff. So that's what got me traveling. Prior to that, I had toured in bands, and so I toured the whole United States, living in vans and buses. Excuse me, and so I traveling's in my blood. I don't like staying still very often. You know what I mean?
You're talking to the vagabond, man. You
Right?
understood.
Exactly. So that kind of it was just natural for me to just kind of start documenting my life. And it's weird when I do the show because I you know what's interesting that I found out that I didn't think about at first. You're like, oh, I'll be in all these different places and it'll be cool to watch. Well, sometimes it's cool to watch and sometimes it's not. Sometimes an activity that's really fun for me does not translate to the viewership. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if I'm playing virtual reality, that's great for me, but nobody wants to watch me play virtual reality. You're running around in a room with nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
Is
it,
that a lot of the reason why you choose mostly to show, like in the episode that you did with me, you showed a B-52 bomber retired in Orlando. You showed a couple of statues in parks, and then you showed yourself doing indoor
skydiving.
parachuting.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that a lot of the reason why you don't fact? Is that you just maybe were on a time crunch, couldn't find a restaurant, or is it just the fact as well you can't taste this, so why would I make you watch me eat?
Um, it depends. Sometimes I will have food, like when I was in Japan and Taiwan, when I go to like some of the street markets, and inevitably I'm trying something crazy, like oh here's some squid or I had octopus with a quail egg in, like that's stuff that you don't have here,
Yeah,
and a lot of people kind of like, ugh. So I'll include that. Or if I'm somewhere
guilty.
like yeah, or like when I was in Canada, um, I had poutine, which is that's their thing. So like if there's something somewhere that's known for, sometimes I'll have that as a as a segment. Or if I'm like when I was in New Orleans, I had some charbroiled oysters because that's where you got to get them. That's
You have to get him there, man.
right. But I try not to make it a long segment, and it just depends on what I shoot. Sometimes I have a ton of footage and it's just I can only include so much. And then other times I don't have very much footage, and it's just weird because it's not scripted. You know what I mean? So I'll give you an example. I did a show out. We were in Tucson and we were out on ATVs in the desert, right? And it's like, wow, that sounds like you'd have a lot of footage for that. I did have a lot of footage, but how much of that do you want to watch of us just driving through the desert? You know what I mean?
Yeah, at that point, that's a demo video for a GoPro.
Exactly. So what ends up happening there, like in those types of scenes, is I'll usually have some background music and kind of make a collage, because if you put some music on, put the highlights, you can sit through that for a couple minutes, and then it transports you to the next part of the story. The other thing I have to be careful about too is a lot of times I don't contact these places before I shoot footage, so I can't just walk into whatever place all the time and just, hey, here's my camera. I'm going to do a documentary. They tend to frown upon that.
Yeah.
Um, some places you can do that. Some places I kind of skirt the rules a little bit. Um,
Sometimes it's better to ask for permission, or excuse me, to ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
yeah. Well, I let me tell you a little story.
Please.
I was in Austin, Texas, and in Austin, Texas, they have a what's it called? Something of the Americas. It's a
Avenue?
yeah, it's a racetrack.
Oh,
Something track of the Americas. Anyway,
I'm literally sitting 10 minutes away from Charlotte Motor Speedway. You stumped me.
Circuit of the Americas. That's what it's
Okay.
called. Outside of that, they have like I think it's like a mile and a half or at least a mile go-kart track, right? And I'm reading everything, and it's like, yeah, you can't take any cameras, you can't do anything. I'm like, well, damn it, that was gonna be, kind of what I was gonna plan on doing. So I ordered these like glasses that you could shoot video with because,
Ah, the spy
eh,
frames.
yeah. So, it's nighttime. I'm driving. I'm recording it. I think I'm being all slight. Oh, cool. Well, my helmet wasn't ventilating right, and it was getting fogged up. So I ended up hitting somebody, like one of their workers that was flagging us to come in. And I'm like, my whole thing was I could see enough, but I couldn't. You were wearing dark clothes and you were in the track. That is not that ain't on me. I mean, it kind of was, but
Was
so
the
like,
gentleman okay?
he flipped completely over my car and everything.
Damn.
And I have it all on video. Like, but the thing is, like, that sounds
Call
crazy,
me kooky. I think they should just charge you extra to offer that service. But
right? But I debated, like, do I put that on or not? Because I kind of bent the rules to do that. And I'm like, you know what? At this point in my life, if I get sued, that would probably help my career. So let's just go for it.
my
So
sentiments exactly.
exactly. But sometimes sometimes like with it being just me, the majority of the time shooting the video, it's hard because I can't always have a camera on myself, so I don't know when fun things are going to happen, when crazy things are going to happen. So sometimes, something happens and I have to tell you the story about it happening, which, you know, it is what it is. But it's not staged. We typically, when we stage something, we try to make it obvious. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, yeah, I get what you're doing here. But we
It's a
don't
skit.
yeah, but we don't do this like, hey, what if I make it like I'm gonna hit something? Like, no, that actually happened. Or, we did a deep sea fishing episode where we got really sick because we were bouncing up and down for 2 hours. I mean, that really happened. So,
Mm. Eh,
yeah.
It's not, turn the camera on and it's live. So if it's live, it happened, and that's the beauty of a lot of these travel shows. But you mentioned there was a little bit of a time frame where you weren't able to do the show, and in that time frame, also your band Half Wheel hadn't been releasing music. Last year, you released a single "Rain," and it was the first thing you guys had done. You'd been pretty consistent as far as a release since you guys started putting out music in 2016. Um, just to be frank about it, what took you so long?
Well, with that particular song, so I record everything. Like I have a studio in my basement, basically. That's where I shoot all the live band.
Featured quite beautifully on my episode.
Um, So I had recorded the song Rain when I just rebuilt the recording stuff. And I recorded it. I had my friend Matt Ferrante, he's a drummer, come over and he was doing some stuff. And when he was done, I'm like, dude, do me a favor, just play drums and give me this beat like this, right? And I said, every whatever it was, 4 measures or whatever, do a drum fill, but keep it moving. Like, don't do a drum fill that stops it, just keep it going. So he played that for however long. And I just took all the parts that I wanted and I kind of assembled it. And the reason for me doing this was because I was kind of testing out the new gear because I wasn't familiar with some of the plugins and everything else I had. So I ended up making a song called Rain, and I had Sean, the singer for Half Wheel, come over, and I only had like one verse and a chorus, and we did it. And it was I never intended to release it. It was just like a practice song, if you will.
Hmm.
But I kind of like as time went on, I kept building it up and building it up. And people are like, "You can release that? It only has one verse and one chorus." I'm like, "What would Robert Smith from The Cure do? He'd release it in a second. He don't care." And I'm like, "Yeah, every song doesn't have to be a single, you know." Turns out this was a single, but
And I
doesn't
will
have.
say, I really did dig your guys' cover of "Just Like Heaven"
Thank you.
from the Good Guy time
Sure.
record.
Yeah.
And I will also say that as far as the mix is concerned, consistently across the stuff that I have sampled, the thing that a lot of people don't get out of a lot of rock bands is a very prominent bass mix. Now, it is obviously bass guitar. You can hear it almost in harmony with everything. Usually, it just kind of serves as a little bed. It's the low end as far as the mix is concerned. But yours is it's like right along with the stuff. Is that a conscious decision, or is that just the style of the bass player you have in the band?
It's usually a conscious decision to pump that bass up. Always change the bass strings or boil them before you record because I want it to sound
Boil them before you record.
boil, boil. Like if you don't have new strings, take them off, throw them in a thing of water that's boiling, and
Right.
that takes all the grease off, makes them sound like new. You can
Hmm.
usually do that a couple times per pack. So there's a little there you go, a little secret.
You may have. I mean, I got the Roto Rooter set of strings. It looks like it looks like you can just clog your drain, unclog your drain with it afterwards. But it has like a set of 100 strings pairings, if you will, six of them, if you will. So yeah, I think you just got. I think I'm never gonna have to buy strings again. Thank you so much for that. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for that tip. But boil the strings, and it's just it is the conscious decision. You say.
Yeah, yeah, and then also what I do, I shouldn't tell you this secret, but I'm going to tell you this secret.
Okay,
So,
it's just you and I here.
yeah,
Just
sometimes,
check my downloads. But
sometimes on the recordings, I will, in addition to the bass, is I will hit low notes on a piano keyboard
right.
and give it that fullness. But like songs like Rain, if you listen to those, there's a lot of additional stuff that's not just music in there. Like there's a hurdy gurdy going the whole way through it, doing a sound that's going. It's like I can't even
So
duplicate
it's
this.
kind of a like literally a winding toy that's playing along in this, or is it looped?
No, I played it. I mean, it's actually like a medieval instrument, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah. Are we video or are we just
We
audio?
are video. If you want to show that
Hang
to
on
our
a second.
listeners for
Show you what
just a second, I can do a quick read here. We're here with Jazz Byers here on the Craig Veltri interview. Coming up, the No Kidding questionnaire. If you would like to advertise through the Scarfire Media Podcast Network, contact us at Scarfire Media dot excuse me scarfireradio at gmail.com. So you say it's is it literally called a
Yes.
hurdy-gurdy? I've only heard that in a Springsteen lyric. Oh heavens, look at this thing.
There's a hurdy-gurdy. So what happens is,
It looks like a sit to our listening audience. It looks like almost like a mandolin and a sitar and a lap steel had a kid with a wind visor.
yeah. So check it out. You've got this wheel. I'll take this up. So this one is what is this? I think 10 strings I have on this, or 10 or 14. No two, you can have whatever, however many strings you want. But on this particular one, I think it's what is it? One, two, three, four, five, six. This is a 10 string. There's four strings down here. These are you don't play these strings. They serve like reverb. Like whenever you play, they kind of resonate. In fact, I think they're called resonator strings. But you spin the handle here at the bottom, and that makes this wheel spin, which makes
Thank
these.
God I have headphones. I think there's a duck pond near my dad's place that will probably be infested at this point.
Right. So yeah, that's it. And then you've got this for those that are watching. These are the what you do the notes with. So you push these up. You see how that moves?
Kind of like I want to say glockenspiel. I can't. I played
Yeah.
one when I was a kid, but like you push it and
Yeah.
they're your chords.
And it kind of the thing that's odd about this is it's like playing a piano backwards in that like all of these keys at the bottom, the furthest away from me would be the white keys on a piano, and all these ones that are close would be all the black keys, which on a piano would be the opposite, right? So if
Right.
you're playing, it's kind of weird to play, and I'm not in any way saying I'm any good. I just own one.
No. Well,
But I'm
it
good. I'm good at making noises for recordings, which is what I
And
did.
it did add a little bit to the very much to the I can remember hearing it in the mix and as part of that atmosphere that you were going for, which
Yeah,
obviously is, what I think a demo really is. You're not trying to get the full sound, but you thought enough of it to release it as a single.
yeah.
Is that to say that we'll be seeing Half Wheel out on the road again as part of the road show?
I hope so. We've been on the show a couple times.
Of
Our
course.
singer has been going through some vocal things, so I may put out a couple instrumentals if I need to. Because Half Wheel started out because I did a documentary of a bike ride I did across the country, and I
Right.
needed music, so I just came down here and I played about 10 pieces of music in one day, like recorded the drums and the bass and the guitar. And then Sean, the singer for Half Wheel, came over the next day and did all these solos, and I mixed it the next day, and that was literally it, right? And it you were like, well, that's pretty cool. And admittedly, like the music was very simple for that because I didn't need to compose songs. I just had to have music in the background of me biking and telling a story. Um, so after that, then we're like, well, let's do an album. So we did two instrumental albums, and then we did an album called Good Days that it has an original song on it and it has instrumental, and then the rest were just like these cool songs that I liked that I always thought, man, I'd like to do my own version of that. Or I don't want to say like, oh, I could make that better. I don't mean it like that. I just mean like, man, I could do that differently and it would be really cool, you know?
Oh yeah, I think every artist thinks that.
Yeah. And that's how that came about because that kind of happened like around 2020 or so. So I wasn't even going to put out an album, but what is there to do except record songs around, in 2020? So I ended up getting enough of them. I'm like, well, hell, let's just put this out. And then everybody kind of latched onto this song called Good Day. Um, and then we did another album after an EP, which was all originals after that. I mean, I write a lot of originals. It's just Half Will. That one album had a lot of covers.
I think of Fozzy, Chris Jericho's band. It started out
Yeah.
as a joke, really.
Jo-
As a
Joan Jett, you think of she did a cover album. I mean, Diver Down from Van Halen was almost all,
oh,
at least
that was a okay record label. You had me over a barrel for this one, but it was a great. I mean, I'm not going to say it was a 10 out of 10, but a great record.
it was a great record. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting, we did a cover, we did a song called Ask the Mountains from Vangelis. So the same Vangelis that did Chariots of Fire and
Yeah, yeah.
Blade Runner and like some wine commercials, that kind of stuff. And we did it because I'm like this.
They have a sound.
Yeah, I'm a huge Vangelis fan, believe it or not. And this one actually had some lyrics, so we did it. And when we recorded it, everybody's like, "What?" I'm like, "Just do it for me." And it's one of the most downloaded, like list not downloaded, but stream songs that we have. I don't know if it's captured like this international audience or what. I was like, that one out of all of them, huh? Like, we've never played that song live. We probably never will, but you can't as a musician, you can't. Sorry, I don't know what my laptop thing.
So all that to say, put you down as a maybe for seeing Half Wheel hit
Oh
the
yeah, I
road
forgot
across
what
the
the
music.
question was. Yeah, I hope to. Sean, the singer, has had some vocal things going on, so that's why we haven't been doing a whole lot. I'm sitting on a couple songs yet, um, and I have another album just about done, but I'm just kind of waiting. I'm not in a hurry. I've reached a point in life like I'll put it out when I put it out. You know what I mean? I don't have to run to do that necessarily. Like the song Rain that you were asking about. This is what I started to. I got sidetracked. Sorry about that. But I sat on that mix for over a year.
Mhm.
It was done, and I work a lot with Mike Ofka at Innovation Studios. So a lot of times he'll mix it for me, or we'll mix it together. I'll sit there and kind of because he just does some kind of voodoo magic that I've watched him do it, and I can do the same thing, and it just turns out better when he does it. But anyways, um, I had several mixes, And I sat on them for a year and I'd play them for people and they'd be like, oh, that's really good. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. I'm like, there's something about it I didn't like. And it took me almost a year to figure out I didn't like it because it was instrumental and it was highlighting the guitar the whole time. So it was
Hmm.
like one big guitar solo. And all the dynamics of like the hurdy-gurdy being under it and then the keyboards coming up and then like glass breaking at certain points in time and then just all this other stuff. It needed to like weave in and out of that solo. And once I figured that out, we pulled that solo down in those spots. Then I was like, okay, now it's mixed. It can be released. So that's kind of my thoughts on mixing. Plus, I'm busy, so sometimes, as much as I would love, if I had the chance to go out on a tour right now musically, I'd go in a second.
Hmm.
But when that's not happening, I'm busy. The show takes up a lot of time. It's a lot of effort to shoot that much footage. I've got like 50.
And to edit it down, you do that all in house, right? All by yourself, correct?
I do all that myself. Yeah, most of that episode is shot with action cams. I have a 360 camera and action cams. So, because people always come up to me, they want to start talking cameras or pick my brains, and I'm like, I just use an action cam. Like that whole show is because I have to keep it simple. I don't have time to sit there and white balance every single scene or anything. I got to turn it on and it's got to be shooting. So,
Yeah. Well, it's all shot beautifully well. And last question before we take the note, before you take the note kitten questionnaire, the remaining three continents that you have not touched down upon yet. What is the one that you're most, or two, excuse me, um, the ones that you haven't touched down on yet? Africa, South America, and Australia. So remaining three. So,
well, I was in South America. I was in Chile
oh, you
on
were
my
in Chile. Okay.
yeah. So on my way to Antarctica, Punta Arenas, I was there for a lot longer than I wanted to be because I was delayed getting to Antarctica. So
Well, still okay. Well, that was a layover then, so it really wouldn't have been,
oh no, I was there for like 5 days.
oh, well, shut me up. Okay, so, so,
But that's okay. I
so Africa, Australia. Which of the two are you most eager to touch down on?
um I don't know. I'm going to Africa or not Africa. I'm sorry. I'm going to Australia. I'll be there in November. Um so I'll be in Sydney and Adelaide, and then I'm going to go to Tasmania off the
Mm,
main island there. I'm excited about that, but I've been to New Zealand. I've been to both islands, the northern and the southern island of New Zealand. So in my mind, I've already been to Australia, even though technically I haven't. So I would have to say Africa I'm interested in. I want to definitely, kind of get the flavor of Africa
mhm.
because there's so much more from what I've kind of researched in quotes. There's areas of Africa that you would think you were in Ireland in that I've seen. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, isn't the whole thing like the safari desert, right? You know what I mean, or like desert?
Just
But
split the years, but yeah, you get a lot of the southern portions of Africa about this time of year. It's starting to feel like winter. So,
yeah, so I guess that shows that I don't know what to expect going to Africa, and I will make it there.
mm,
I've been holding out hope that maybe I would get do a show in Africa, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. So I do have
why's
the hope.
not?
I just don't foresee. I don't have the contacts. Like in Europe, I do a ton of stuff in Europe. I've just started to do like the Asian market. I don't know anybody that's doing anything in Africa. So if anybody out there wants to do a show in Africa, call me. I'm happy to go.
Fair enough. Uh, let's make this a two-parter before we go to the questionnaire. Actually, what is on the itinerary right now? What is the place that you are most looking forward to? And gun to your head, what is the best place that you have, your favorite place that you have visited?
All right. So oddly enough, the place I'm looking forward to going to the most currently in July, I'm going to the Yukon and I'm doing an episode.
Canada.
Yeah, and it's going to be like a two-part episode. I think I'm flying I roped in two friends. We're flying to Fairbanks. I rented a car and we're going to drive the top of the world highway or road, which is essentially a dirt trail in parts, from what I understand. And we're driving to a place called Dawson City. And the reason we're going to Dawson City is because in Dawson City, they have a hotel that you can become a member of. And once you do that, you can order what's called the sourdough cocktail.
The sourdough cocktail. What is
Yes.
that?
The sourdough cocktail is a drink that is served with a human severed toe in it. And it's all formaldehyde, just gross looking and everything else. And they have
I bet. I did. Okay, I have so many questions about the toe,
sure.
but uh, I mean, first of all, why would you want to taste that? Second of all, why would they make something like this? And two, where are they getting the toes?
Okay. Well, they reuse the toes first off. They're donated to people that like,
Frostbite, probably.
frostbite or accident or what have you. So they've had a number of different toes throughout the years. Um, so you don't actually do anything other than they throw it in your drink and you do this drink. And you can look it up. There's a story with somebody that got frostbite back in like 1913 or something, and that's how this all started, and it's been this tradition.
Now, I don't drink anyway, but even and I'm still of the thought of I'll try anything once. Human flesh, that's where I draw the line.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. People are like, "Why do you want to do that?" And I'm like, it's not that I necessarily want to do that. It's just so bizarre that I kind of find myself in a position like I have to do it. You know what I mean? And what I've learned a long time ago when I travel is the destination is simply there to make you do something.
Mm,
So
when in Rome.
yeah, if I didn't have that as the end goal, I wouldn't have this incredible adventure of flying to Fairbanks and then getting a car and driving with friends to the place. I mean, that's the true adventure.
Mhm.
And I mean, anybody can go buy a drink, put a toe in it, and drink it if you really wanted to. You'll figure out a way to do it, right?
So,
So,
gun to the head, what is your favorite place you visited
oh my
for the
goodness.
road show so far?
For the road show, hands down, the South Pole. The second time I was there twice. The second time I was there was magical. I rode a bike from camp to the South Pole, which is kind of crazy unto itself, like a fat tire bike. That's originally why I was in Antarctica, or originally why I was going to go to Antarctica. I was trying to get on an expedition. We were going to try to ride from Union Glacier Camp, which is about 500 kilometers from the South Pole, about 5 or 7 of us, but the logistics all fell through. And I'm just giving you the Cliff's Note version of this,
Of course.
where you are going to try to do this again. It's not really been done the way we want to do it. And because of that, the logistics of making it happen, it just gets crazy. So,
The old Groucho Marx line comes to mind. We took some pictures of the native girls, but they weren't developed yet. But we're going back next year to take some more. Jazz, we have a nice way of closing here on the Craig Veltri interview. It's called the No Kidding Questionnaire. A couple of rapid fire questions, though
oh,
poignant. First thing that comes to your mind whenever you're ready, and away we go. Childhood celebrity crush.
oh wow, celebrity crush, Farrah Fawcett.
Did you have the poster, and what was it about her? The hair, the eyes.
No,
What'd
I
you?
take back Jacqueline Smith,
Oh,
Charlie's Angels.
also on Charlie's
Yes,
Angels. Okay.
yes.
So
I mean, not that Farrah was bad either, but yeah,
yeah,
I was
you were more into brunettes. Got you on that. So
single
what?
digits back then too.
Say again.
I said I was the single digits back then. I was a young one, a little guy back then.
My dad actually not only had the poster, he had the T-shirt of Farrah Fawcett. So, uh, Charlie, you lucky man. Uh, favorite subject in school?
Oh man, study hall for sure.
Study
Favorite
hall.
favorite subject out of school would I love to listen to quantum physics lectures. Believe it or not, that I fall asleep
Really?
every. Yeah, it's
Like Stephen Hawking books.
Brian Cox, Stephen Hawkins, any of them. Just listening to all of that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I am, I'm not a quantum physicist but I enjoy listening to it. I can understand the overall concepts. I can't necessarily do the mathematics. But
Mm.
yeah. But
I will say the greatest disservice my Catholic education gave me. I will say they did teach evolution. They did teach all of the stuff that a typical biology class or chemistry class should be teaching. But the fact that it took me until I got into college to actually see Cosmos by Carl Sagan, if that had come into my periphery at
right.
any point during my primary or high schooling, I would have probably had more of a passion for science and I would have had much better grades as a result. So it's
But
that
they did teach that the Earth is round, right?
they did teach the Earth is round, and you having been to the South Pole, you can verify how the sun spins around in front,
Our sun,
confirming
yes.
it. So,
Yes.
uh, what occupation other than your own would you like to attempt? You have a pretty damn good job. I doubt you wouldn't want to do anything else. But what if the opportunity came? What would your dream job be?
I don't know. I mean, if I didn't do all this and I wasn't like a professional rock star, I'd have to go with, oddly enough, a chef or a cook.
Chef or a cook? Okay. Um, I've already asked the question about.
Celebrity chef, or let's make it good. I mean, I can wish for anything, right? So let me be a celebrity chef. How's that?
I mean, Anthony Bourdain. I mean, yeah, he was a chef. So, Bourdain and Ramsay, they made their livings doing these great travel shows as a supplement to what they usually do. So,
Oh,
who knows? Maybe you'll see yourself in whites in a kitchen somewhere in France or something one
yeah,
of these days.
Jazz's Rock and Cook Show.
What job? I don't care how many bags of money in any denomination or material. I don't care how much. Would you never want to attempt?
High school teacher.
Hmm. Is that something that you had done in the past, or or is that just karma coming back to you, Mr. Study Hall?
No, yeah, no, I would just, I couldn't deal with. I'd be arrested. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like somebody would mouth off to me and then, the gloves would come off and we'd be fighting or something. Not that I have a temper. I just wouldn't do good in that situation.
Hmm.
That or working in prison. Like either one of those. Like it just I'd be the guy getting beat up.
Some
Even in high school I'd be
some with ill experiences in high school would say that there's no comparison. But now my grandmother was a substitute high school teacher. I watched my mom be a high school teacher for 3 years. I also watched her drink a lot as a result. But so yeah, I we have our ways of coping, Mom, if you're
and,
listening.
and
Um,
when I say that, there's nothing at all wrong with either of those professions. Like
not at all.
if that's what you do, because I have people be like, I couldn't do what you do. So it'd be a boring place if we all did the same thing.
Exactly. And for me, it just came down to this. When President Obama said in a State of the Union address, he said, become a high school teacher, become a teacher. Your country needs you. And I said, with all due respect, Mr. President, not that badly. Off I go. Well, this is probably the question in this questionnaire that I've looked forward the most to saying to you. And we've already talked a little bit about Italian cuisine,
Uh-huh.
and you are most qualified to say this. What is your go-to food on a road trip?
Oh my goodness. Oh, it depends on where I'm at. I
Exactly.
try, I try to eat what I think or know to be the local cuisine, or there's something special in there. I can tell you hands down, like if I'm in Atlanta, I'm going to Gus's Fried Chicken, and I'm going to the Twin Smokers Barbecue. If I'm out west, I'm going to go to In-N-Out Burger. Doesn't mean it's the best. It just means
I'd
there's
move to
certain
California just to be near an In-N-Out burger. So
right, exactly. When you're in Hawaii, you have the what's it called? The Mojo. Can't think of the name of it. Locomoto. Loco Locomoto, I think it is, which is like rice on a burger with gravy and egg on it and all this
oh,
crazy.
that sounds delightful.
Yeah, so there's not one. I mean, if I had to pick one, you know, I don't know, macaroni and cheese and pizza. Wings. I've eaten a lot of wings in my day.
Yeah. You being from Pennsylvania, this is becoming the supplemental question. Sheets or Wawa?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, it's kind of like asking somebody if they eat Heinz or Del Monte. They'll never admit if they eat Del Monte if they live in Pittsburgh. So I got to go with Sheets.
Sheets representative. I still want to tell you about the victory meal, which is the double chicken quesarito that I like from there on my trips back up there. Well, Speaking, well, depending on wherever you are, whatever is on the table, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Five. Wow. Um, Probably Robert Smith from The Cure. Probably. I mean, if it's a musician, yeah, Robert Smith from The Cure. I'd love to have dinner with Brian Cox, the scientist.
Hmm.
Um,
As a musician, and you covered one of his songs, you mentioned him as an influence, and you know you can talk about the image and his wacky hair, but those records for some people, that is the sound of the '80s, and that is so flows through in so much of the music that you hear from guitarists today, whether you want to admit it or not. But what to me, that's what I hear when I hear The Cure. What is it about Robert Smith that meant so much to you?
uh, I just love the way he crafts songs and imagery.
Mm.
I mean, when I say that, they're one of my favorite bands, of course. Having said that, I could say the same thing about Blackie Lawless from Wasp. I could say the same thing about Paul Westerberg from The Replacements. It's it's just that's what comes to mind now. I'd love me some AC/DC.
Who
So
doesn't?
you know, so but I think he would be an interesting character. I mean, Bon Scott. Speaking of AC/DC, I'd love to sit down with resurrect him from the dead for one evening and sit down with him. That would be interesting. You know, that's such an interesting question. There's too many people to name. You
Mm.
know,
It's why that is my favorite
yeah.
question on the
I mean,
questionnaire.
I'd love going to the Antarctica thing. I'd love to meet up with like Shackleton and some of those early explorers and be like, what were you thinking? You know what I mean? Like, but
Mm.
yeah,
We have a world to discover, probably would be the answer. But yeah,
yeah.
that we are curious beings, and we're also beings that are very easily irritated, which brings me to this question. Jazz Byers, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh my goodness, people that don't wear shoes on airplanes.
I may have been guilty of kicking off my flip-flops, but
Well, I'm giving you a stern finger wagging right now.
I keep my feet freshened. I keep and besides, it's a long flight, and it's good for the airflow.
Yeah.
Have you been caught by some behind somebody who who dared walk out from the gym to the airport that morning, or why is that such a
Um,
why that comes to mind so quick?
I don't know. I think when I said that, because I was just reading some stuff about travel, and I've noticed that like people don't travel. I don't mean you have to dress up, but like uh, people that don't dress appropriately for traveling, I think was maybe in my mind. But I might make people mad when I say this, but here's
Mm,
the thing. I travel like I've been on planes where like in the wintertime maybe going to Florida. I realize it's going to be warm in Florida, right? But I might have flown into New York City and then to Florida and they'll be like family of four and they're all wearing like, shorts and flip-flops. It's like it's still wintertime here. If you're stuck on that plane, you're going to complain about being cold, but you're not dressed appropriately for it. So
yeah.
how's that? That's a small pet peeve.
Yeah,
Maybe not a good one.
at the very least, I don't know. It's a very much. I don't want to say that society had long ago chosen comfort over style over the years, but you do see a lot of people you just look them up and down, and it's just like, they're gonna. Do you own a suit? They're gonna bury you in your sweat clothes. You do realize that, right? But
And I'm not saying you need to wear a suit when you travel, because I remember when my dad and my brother they flew out to California like mid 70s, late 70s, and I was just, again, single digits, little guy. But I remember them putting suits and ties on to fly on an airplane. I don't want that. You know what I
mm-mm.
mean? But
Truthfully, I go whenever I'm on longer road trips or even in a plane for more than 4 hours. Oh, you better believe I'm in sweats. I'm going to be comfortable throughout this as much as I possibly can. So I get it.
I always like when you fly over to like the Asian countries and stuff, and they have the little slippers on the plane. I always think
Do
that's so
they?
cool. Like, yeah, you put the slippers on and have your little, you know, slipper fest, I guess. I don't know what you call it, but I kind of think that's cool. But
I've always thought about going to Japan one of these days. So I would. just for the slippers alone now. That's another one. Last question of the questionnaire, Jazz. What is the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
Oh my goodness. I tell you what, a couple of things, but the one that comes to mind, my dad used to always say that his dad used to always say, live life as you go through it. Because my dad, my grandfather, I never knew my grandfather, but he died when he was 55. And my dad used to always say, like, when he turned 55 and became older than 55, he always felt like that was a gift. Like that was, he was on bonus time because his dad died younger. And his dad worked, knew all these guys in steel mills. And they would talk about how, oh, when we retire, we're going to do this and do this and do this. And they retired and they had a heart attack and died or whatever, got badly sick or whatever. And it's like he used to always say they could have been living their life while they were still working in the steel mill. You don't have to like put all your plans on hold. And that's, I've tried to embrace that all my life. Like, if you were to ask me right now, do you want to go do something? If I don't, I'll tell you no, but I'll say yes. I won't say, well, I have to see if I can make it. No, I'll be like, yes, I want to do that. Let's figure out how to make it happen. And that's how I live my life.
I'm exactly the same way, just because I know how it feels to be left out. So to have the invitation to be included, I do say yes to pretty much every single opportunity within reason. If you're going to ask me to play bass in your band, I don't know how to play bass, so let me help you find somebody. But it almost kind of sounds like that saying. It almost is kind of a derivative of one day at a time. So I do love that outlook and philosophy, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And we have one more thing to do. This should be the favorite part of the episode for every single guest. It is time for shameless self promotion. The Jazz's Rock and Road Show on Music to the 412, Half Wheel with their music out. Where can we find these fine products? Where can we find you, kind sir? Anywhere in the world. Fire away.
All right. So on Facebook, Jazz Byers, Jazz, Byers, Byers. Look me up, Jazz's Rock and Road Show, also on Facebook. You can look us up there. If you want to watch the episodes, you can go to www.musicfromthe412.com. From there, you can find all the different episodes, not just mine, but you can watch the live episodes. And if you specifically want to get to my on-demand stuff, it is www.musicfromthe412, that's the number 412.com /jazz, Jazz. And that takes you to like 4 or 5 pages of all of my episodes. There will be a YouTube channel soon. I just haven't gotten around to that. We try to drive all the traffic to the Music from the 412. And apparently there's a Roku app for Music from the 412.
There is.
I don't have Roku, so I don't know how to tell you to navigate that. But if you're in Roku world, look it up there, Music from the 412.
Just go to the Roku store on the Roku app and download the app for
There
Music
you go.
412. Jazz Byers of Rattle Clack Entertainment, of Jazz's Rock and Road Show, and the guitarist for Half Wheel. Thank you so much for joining me here today on the Craig Veltri interview.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
The Craig Veltri interview, where Craig Veltri interviews wonderful people, is a production of Scarfire Media, the voice of the indie arts. Written and edited by Craig Veltri, your announcer is Megan Pennington. The opening theme, Shut Up, I Love You, written by Trenton Chandler and Craig Veltri, performed by Craig Veltri, produced by Jack Gavin. The full-length concept record, Letters to the Defendant, is available on limited edition vinyl. Just send $35 to my Venmo at Craig-Veltri, Zelle, CraigVeltryOfficial@gmail.com, or to my Cash App, $Craig Veltri. Here's who's playing Biloxi now, musicvideohype.com. Thank you so much for the write-up. My music video channel on the Roku app. Thank you for the spins. The Ranch with Randy O'Neill. Thank you for having me on, Randy. Exposed Vocals. Thanks for the exposure. The Chubbs Show. Jazz's Rock and Road Show. Again, thank you to our guest, Jazz, for having me on his show. It was great talking with him on this one. And, of course, the mothership, Fire Pit, here on the Scarfire Media Podcast Network. Time now to update the event calendar, because you must know where I am at all times. Friday, June 6th, I will be at Tin Roof at Myrtle Beach from 2:30 to 5:30. Same day, I will be heading just up the road to Bums Beach Cafe on Friday, June 6th from 8 to midnight. Then Saturday, June 7th, I will be at Inlet Prohibition Company in Murrells Inlet from 5 to 8. Then out to Tennessee and Music City, USA, Nashville. Monday, June the 9th, that will be part of the Music City Movement's featured artists round at Passage Cava Lounge in Madison, Tennessee. The show will be from 7 to 9. My slot is to be determined. Keep it locked to my brand new website, craigveltri.bandzoogle.com. That is where you'll get all the full dates. For booking info, as always, including full band and this podcast, email me at craigveltriofficial@gmail.com. You can find the interview on Facebook by searching the Craig Veltri interview, YouTube at Craig Veltri Music, TikTok at Craig Veltri, and you can find me on Instagram, or as my old roommate, the Tommy Thomas, used to call it, Instagirl, at Craig.Veltri. For Jazz Byers, I'm Craig Veltri, and this has been the Craig Veltri interview. With that, I'll pass the place out is Jazz Byers and his band Half Wheel. Here's Rain, closing out the Craig Veltri interview, a service of Scarfire Media, the voice of the indie arts.